During World War II, millions of soldiers fought all across the globe. But for the very first time in modern war, thousands of them were women. They were serving in uniform right up near the front lines, and they truly believed, that they fought under the same rules as men. They were wrong. This is the story of what really happened when they were captured, and why their entire history was deliberately erased for over 50 years.
This quote right here, from an American WAC officer named Mary Collins, is really where it all begins. She wrote this years after the war was over, holding on to a secret she was literally forbidden to tell. Her words, well, they set the stage for a truth that took decades and decades to finally come out.
You see, the nightmare for these women started the second they were captured. The discovery that all those established rules of war, the ones they counted on, just didn't apply to them. That discovery was immediate and it was brutal.
Now let's be crystal clear. These weren't women in some far-off ceremonial roles. No way. American WACs were managing critical communications just miles from the fighting. British ATA pilots were flying Spitfires through incredibly dangerous skies. And you had French resistance fighters, women who were sabotaging German supply lines day in and day out. They were soldiers, doing dangerous, essential jobs.
This right here, this slide just perfectly captures the exact moment that illusion completely shattered. When an American lieutenant named Mary Collins was captured in Italy, she did exactly what she was trained to do. She asserted her rights as a prisoner of war under the Geneva Convention. But the German captain's response? It was chilling. The Geneva Convention protects soldiers, he said, not women playing at war. In that one sentence, the rules vanished.
And you might think, okay, maybe that was just one rogue officer. But it wasn't. After a British pilot, Sarah Bennett, was shot down over France, she was told almost the exact same thing. This phrase, special handling, can you imagine hearing that? It was this terrifyingly vague warning that they were entering a whole different reality, an unwritten set of rules created just for them.
And here is what's absolutely crucial to understand. What these women went through wasn't random abuse from a few bad guards. Oh no. It was a calculated, documented, and systematic German policy. It was designed from the very top with a cold, terrifying psychological precision.
After the war, memos were discovered that gave it a name: specialized protocols. The German High Command had officially classified female soldiers as morally compromised, just for abandoning what they called their normal feminine roles. And that classification, well, that was the key that unlocked a whole new system of cruelty.
This shows you their method. It was a three-step assault designed to destroy their identity. First, they were completely isolated from any male prisoners. Then came the systematic humiliation, being stripped, photographed, subjected to these invasive examinations. And finally, their uniforms were taken and replaced with flimsy civilian dresses, literally erasing any outward sign that they were ever soldiers at all.
And the goal, which was stated right there in their own documents, was purely psychological. They wanted to systematically destroy the women's self-perception as soldiers, to force them back into a state of what the Germans saw as proper female vulnerability and shame.
And believe me, this was no small-scale operation. By 1944, German records show that a hidden network of more than 15 of these specialized detention centers were up and running. Each one was basically a laboratory for breaking women in ways that were completely different from the camps for men.
But then, something happened that the Germans absolutely did not expect. Faced with this system that was designed to completely erase who they were, these women, they began to fight back. And they did it in quiet, powerful ways you'd never imagine.
The way they resisted was just remarkable. It wasn't about escape plans, it was about preserving their identity, their very sense of self. Every single night, they would whisper their ranks and their units to each other in the dark, reminding themselves and each other that they were still soldiers.
This quote from Sarah Bennett's secret diary just says it all, doesn't it? Their captors could control everything around them, their bodies, their environment, but they couldn't extinguish that inner fire, that identity as soldiers. And this quiet defiance, it absolutely infuriated the Germans.
So because those psychological tactics weren't completely breaking their spirit, the Germans escalated. They introduced a brand new phase, which they documented in their own records as enhanced female interrogation protocols.
And this is probably the most damning point of all. This was not just a few bad guards acting out. SS headquarters itself authorized these gender-specific techniques, and they demanded regular reports on their effectiveness. It was official, it was monitored, it was state-sanctioned policy from the very top.
So when Allied troops finally liberated the camps in 1945, you'd think the ordeal was finally over. But instead, for these women, it marked the beginning of a second, profound betrayal. Only this time, it came from their own side.
I mean, just look at the stark difference here. Male POWs came home to parades, their stories were in the papers, they were hailed as heroes. The women? They were immediately separated from everyone, taken to special hospitals, and their debriefings were stamped top secret. They were silenced before they could even begin to speak.
So why? Why do this? This declassified American intelligence memo gives us the shocking answer. Their stories were considered a public relations issue. It was thought that what they endured could harm future recruitment of women into the military. Their trauma was inconvenient, so their own governments decided it was better to just bury it.
This timeline just shows how long and how deliberate this cover-up really was. From forcing women to sign secrecy oaths in 1945 to intelligence agencies actively removing their stories from public records, it took 50 years, half a century, for the truth to even begin to trickle out.
The fight to uncover this buried history was, as you can imagine, long and incredibly difficult. It was led by just a handful of dedicated historians and, of course, the aging survivors themselves, who were determined that the world would know the truth before they died.
This quote from Elise Dupont, a French resistance fighter, just perfectly encapsulates the profound dual injustice these women faced. The first betrayal came from their enemies. The second, and maybe the one that was even more painful, came from the allies they had fought so bravely for.
The big moment, the thing that finally broke the dam of silence, came in 1995. Hidden away in a former East German secret police archive, researchers found the German High Command's actual training manuals and interrogation reports. And there it was, finally, the cold, clinical proof that validated everything the survivors had been trying to tell people for decades.
So why does all this matter so much today? Because once their story was finally told, their horrific experiences led directly to real changes in military law and policy. It led to stronger protections for female military personnel all across the world. Their suffering, once it was finally acknowledged, actually created lasting change. You know, their ordeal is this powerful reminder that history isn't always what's written down in the official records. Sometimes the most important stories are the ones that were deliberately silenced, and it leaves us with this really critical question to think about. How many other stories just like this are still out there, just waiting for someone, someday, to be ready to hear the truth?